Yes, indeed, folks. This is, of course, WoW Radio, the Blue Please show, where we spend 2 hours ranting about nonsensical things. Fantastic. Okay. Over the past few weeks, we've been doing a little feature that we like to call It's Working. Yeah, it's working. It's working as intended, baby. Yes. And the idea is we try and get our collective heads together as a group of WoW players, and generally not retarded idiots, and try and think of solutions to problems that Blizzard hasn't necessarily managed to solve yet. Now, this week's Working as Intended, and in fact last week's Working as Intended was quite similar to this. Rather than taking specific problems, we're going to take a more general view of things, because it gets the debate going, it gets the creative juices flowing. And I found last week that the responses to the question of how to improve caster-based how to improve the caster classes at endgame using progressive items came up with some very good responses, and I had people still messaging me today, having listened to the archive, coming up with their suggestions. All very good stuff, and it's obvious that people have put a lot of thought into it and are quite capable of getting the creative juices flowing. So, here's something for you. Let's see what you can give me in this week's Working as Intended. And I want your answers sent to themurloc@gmail.com. That is the Murloc. There is no K in Murloc before you start. themurloc@gmail.com. Now, the issue this week is there seems to be a large jump from the supposed high-end instances, Stratum, Scholomance, LBRS, UBRS, Diamol, to the endgame hardcore content. Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, Onyxia. So the question is this. Bearing in mind that Zul'Gurub may or may not bridge the gap even, and that is still does not help very small guilds and groups of friends progress to a higher level beyond, of course, the stuff in Scholomance, DM, etc. How would you suggest that Blizzard proceed with content for level 60s who have finished all this stuff but still want more out of the game? What would you suggest? Maybe to get you started for 10, the idea of progressive content, where a quest is spread across many different zones or instances, and it takes a few days to finish and you get a nice reward out of it. Or perhaps a Scarlet Monastery for level 60s of sorts, where 4 very small instances are put into one large instances, and there are things you have to do in each in order to get the final reward. Perhaps solo instances, which are incredibly difficult and test your character proficiency and equipment builds, etc., to the limit. Something like that. I want all your answers sent to themurloc@gmail.com, and I'll be reading them out during the show. Now, last week I was giving shout-outs to people. I'm not going to specifically say I'm going to give you shout-outs this week, because quite frankly I was swamped by them. Absolutely swamped by shout-out requests. And it's crazy. Absolutely insane. But I'm going to shout out to a couple of people, specifically because they deserve it. Anvil Beard is the author of the Warcraft Weekly on the EU General Forums, and has, of course, come to the attention of the European Community Managers, which is the way to do it. So shout out goes to him. He's apparently very tired, but he is listening to the show and glad that we're now in a sane, sensible slot of sorts. But no, I'm not going to offer shout-outs this week, because it's crazy. But if you do really want a shout-out, send me a PM, or send me an email at themurloc@gmail.com, and I shall put your name on the air. You can be famous for 15 seconds. Anyway, let's get back onto it. Before the break, we were discussing the matter of server lag, server latency, and what the hell is going on. Now I'm going to discuss the concept of compensation, because this always comes out every time something goes wrong. You always get the odd few people saying, we want compensation. Now, in general, it's Blizzard's policy to give a couple of free days. So if your account, your payment cycles every 30 days or so. If you get 2 free days, it'll cycle 2 days later. So effectively, you are getting 2 days free. But people complained about that, say, I don't want that because it's not going to affect me until I unsubscribe. Yes, but it doesn't stop the fact that you are getting these 3 days. Some people ask for a month free. Ludicrous. Absolutely insane. I mean, how much revenue does Blizzard make every month? You want them to give you a free month? Are you nuts? No, that's silly. That is commercial suicide. Why would anyone do such a thing? No, it's against all the laws of common sense and economics. It's just really daft. So, that's not going to happen. And it would seem that this time, they are giving the reward a compensation of rested XP. Unfortunately, that's not going to help the level 60s, really, is it? At least that is what some people are complaining about. This is not compensation because I'm a level 60. Do you have any odds? Well, there's compensation there, isn't it? So you are getting something. The question is, in fact, there are several questions here. Is it enough? Is it in the right direction? Or was it even required in the first place? Is it enough? How do you codify enough? The problem with the compensation issue is that there are two ways of looking at it. The first way of looking at it is you give 2 free days for the loss of 2 days' play, or thereabouts. This seems like a fair exchange. However, some people view it in a different way. Some people view it as, I lost the opportunity to do my MC raid, or it crashed in the middle of doing Ragnaros or Onyxia or whatever, therefore I lost out on fat loots. It crashed when I wanted to go and do something with my mates. It crashed when, on one of the only times I was able to go and play, say if you're a busy person, you know, you've got a lot of school or you have a job, wife, kids, that kind of thing. And that is an acceptable way of looking at things. I can see where they're coming from there. I don't necessarily hold those views, but I can certainly respect them. When you're very, very busy, and gaming is your little release from your hard day's work, you don't want to log on and see that it's not working. That's a bit of a pain. Unfortunately, this is reality, and that happens from time to time, which is why I'm a gamer and not a wowbie. I don't just play World of Warcraft, I've got lots of games. I'll be talking about a very specific game that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, in fact, on Blue Please, called Savage, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later on, but let's get back to this matter at hand. Most gamers play lots of games. They don't just play World of Warcraft or Counter-Strike or whatever. They may favour one game over the others, but they will have backups. They will have other things they can do. The argument, of course, is that, well, you pay for a service, therefore you should be able to use it, and you shouldn't have to go and play another game when you're paying for one already. Again, more issues come up here. You're paying for a service, therefore you're expecting a higher level of service than something you're not paying to play. For instance, a free game. Expectations are naturally higher, and rightly so. Even the law says this. When it comes to quality of a product, expectations are often governed by the price of the product. The cheaper the product, the less service someone in a normal state of mind would expect. For instance, value bread is not as tasty as premium bread. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, that's not the way MMORPGs are. In general, they all follow the same kind of pricing structure. And when people see this and see, say, that EverQuest 2 is not having these problems, I don't know whether it is or not, because I don't play it, because it's crap. But when they see that it's not necessarily having these problems, they come to the surge of, well, okay, how come they get servers that work and we don't? We're paying the same as they are. And then people go on a blitzing rant against Blizzard. You know, you can imagine it, you can visualize it right now. Oh my god, Blizz, you know, fix things, you suck, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to kidnap your children. An unfortunate state of affairs, but it's the way people can get. They can get very angsty and very aggroed over the issue of having to pay for a game. So compensation is, of course, a natural way of going. But how do you compensate people? Can you compensate people for downtime, crashes, etc.? If you lose something specific from a character and it's a one-off instance, say you lost your Arcanite Reaper, it disappeared in some weird bug that no one else has got, well, you get your Arcanite Reaper back, that's fair enough. But how do you quantify compensation for 4 million players or whatever when they each want different things? One is screaming for 100 gold because of his missed instances and repair costs because of lag. Can you argue that perhaps he shouldn't have gone into a risky situation in the first place because of lag? You know, if you had 3,000 ping, you wouldn't go and try and do Ragnaros. That's just stupid. But was he within his rights to do so, bearing in mind he's paying for service? There's the other person who says, well, I want free items, I want rested XP, I want a free level. I don't want rested XP, I want the XP that I could have got. Well, sorry, you know, that's the same as the RIAA's argument as to lost profits, you know. The whole thing about MP3s and downloading. They're saying, oh, well, MP3 downloads work out to this much lost profits a year, you know, 500 billion in lost revenue. Was the revenue ever going to be there in the first place? Can you argue that something that does not currently exist actually exists in a quantifiable sense that you can give compensation for? Very questionable kind of attitude, in my opinion. So, people seem to want a lot of things. A lot of people don't know what they want. They simply want to rage against the machine, you know. Get really angry at the evil corporation that's screwing them over. Well, to be quite honest, is it really worth it? I think one of the primary features of this show is to try and spread the word of common sense to people. In a way, it's preaching to the converted. I would hope the people that listen to this show are not the sort of people that get incredibly rowdy and angsty over issues in a video game. I would hope they would appreciate the concept of having fun and the fact that we're only paying the price of a pizza every month to play it. Sometimes, though, you know, you can't generalise people like that. Some people are more sensitive to that thing than others. And are they in the right or are they in the wrong? I'm in no position to dictate either, quite frankly. No one is. The level of service that you expect from a company is dependent on the person. Some people have very low expectations. I have very low expectations. I expect to be able to play my game every now and again. As long as I can play the game for the majority of the month, then that's fine. Because in general, I haven't had that many problems or downtime. You know, downtime hasn't even constituted, you know, a week, I would have thought, in real time over the past however many months. Nowhere near that much. It's been up most of the time. It works the vast majority of the time. That's fine. And I expect this because it's an MMORPG. They are naturally prone to bugs, downtime, and all that kind of jazz. But then again, that's me. There are other people playing this game. They have very different opinions. Some people expect a lot. Maybe it's someone's first MMORPG and they didn't expect this. I've played several. I know that this kind of thing happens. It's something you just have to deal with. And it's going to be something you're going to have to deal with until the technology really develops. MMORPGs are relatively new. Things go wrong with them. And predictably so. When you run a game across clusters of hundreds and hundreds of servers, something is going to go pear-shaped at some point. Maybe the people are just immature. Maybe they just want to rant for no apparent reason. Rage against the machine. You know, evil capitalist whores. No. I really don't know. But it's a good way to fill in 14 minutes of a show, isn't it? So, with that in mind, I think I'll play some Rage Against the Machine. Why not? This is Know Your Enemy, folks. You listen to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. Enjoy.